Yo, what's good, YouTube? This is Jay from TNJ, and welcome back to the Denver Bears franchise as we recap season number 5 as we came up just short of the World Series, and we ended up losing to the World Series champions in the Chicago Cubs. As I kind of said, they have that high-powered offense versus that very good pitching of Houston. But it looks like the Cubs did take it in 6 games. And it looks like Corey Seager won postseason MVP. Luis Arias won MVP for the World Series in particular. Now, heading into next season, Rafael Marchand, I do not think will have that season-ending injury. Sometimes you do have that 6-month injury, which ends up being season-ending. So good thing he will be back next year. And then Eugenio Suarez was actually leading the playoffs in home runs and was actually up there in RBIs as well. But look at around him. I mean, it was all Cubs. No Houston Astros at all. Nobody else. Just the Cubs with the RBI leaders. And now we kind of hop into a transition phase because we do have, some contracts expiring, but mostly just our depth guys. Jorge Polanco is expiring. He will hit the free agent market. I do not think I will bring him back. I liked him for this year, but I think I'm looking for something else. And I want to give, some of the young guys a shot now that they're good enough to move up to the majors now. Keston here is also a free agent, and I just don't see myself bringing him back, mostly because, he was kind of underwhelming, especially on the defensive end. He was a liability. Anytime I played him at second base, I could guarantee that there would be one play where I'd be like, well, it's hit to the right side. That could result in a run eventually or a base hit, and I'm just like, I can't keep doing that, especially in the playoffs where you need all defensive plays to count. You got to have good defensive infielders. Now let's just look at how our hitting wise, how we did. Benito Ozuna actually led our team in home runs this year with 28, hit 269, 355 on base percentage. The only thing with him, I'd be so happy with Benito Ozuna, but his fielding just gets to me. I mean, his arm is not that good, and it's really a liability. Any base hit up the middle is going to be either a first to third or kind of a run scored from second base. I mean, there is no in between. He's never thrown out a runner at all. And that is one of the things that, really gets to me because I do want to have a good defensive team. As good as he is offensively, I just think that, we might need a defensive option in the outfield. And Benito Ozuna only hits about 260s or so, 270s. It's not like he is amazing at hitting the ball. So if there is an upgrade option, I could go after that in free agency. I'm not exactly sure though. Jesse Winker has been the guy that has kind of turned this team around because remember going from season 3 to season 4, we finally made the playoffs, and Winker was a big part in that. He doesn't hit for high average, but his on-base percentage is very high. He hits for at least 25 home runs a year. Pretty consistent here, 23, 29, 26, and 27. In the last 2 years, he's hit 26 and 27 for us, and he does have one more year left on his deal after this one. One thing I do want to do is kind of help him as far as platooning goes, because just looking at his numbers, he hit 307, but with about 80 or so less at bats with Cincinnati, and I kind of want to get those at bats down. So plan on me kind of finding a guy that can platoon with him in left field. Maybe even Benito Ozuna will move to left field, and I will find a defensive center fielder. Zach Veen is also an option there. Now, Eugenio Suarez really did boost us from that wild card game to the NLCS, and you can just see the difference here. I mean, he just hit for home runs. Actually, I said that Ozuna led home runs. I meant Suarez. Ozuna was second in home runs, and looking at Suarez, he is getting older and declining. I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be his last year with us, but we'll see. I'm not sure because, we thought Blackman was going to go to free agency and not come back, but he ended up coming back. So who knows? We might bring Suarez back. I want to go back to Keston Hiura, and option that I have for Keston Hiura's replacement is Felipe Santos, the 18-year-old draftee we had a season ago. He did have a decent year at AA. He hit about 250. I'm not sure if I'll rush him up. I might keep him down one more year to kind of develop behind Suarez, but he can also play second base. We'll have to see. There's other options as well, like Brian Rocchio. Rocchio is a guy that has been in our organization the last 4 seasons, and just looking at him, he's okay. I wouldn't say he's great at anything, though. I think that's the only thing. Then we have Ryan Vilade, and then there's Zion Storm, obviously. I love Storm a lot, but I do like his versatility. He plays every position, so we will want to keep that in mind. Now, CJ Abrams had a career year, and this could be a trend because he's already at 89 overall. He's 8 potential, 23 years old. I still like him batting 8th in the lineup because we have a guy that can get on base at a very high clip and score runs at the bottom of our lineup. So a lot of you guys have said maybe move him up, but I just love having a guy that can really hit for average at the bottom of our lineup. And I think that CJ Abrams is excellent defensively. I think that he is probably, if I had to say all around, he could be the best player on our team. Muhammad Willingham is going into a crucial year, to be honest. I think this is more of a prove-it year for Muhammad Willingham because, remember, we had a platoon with him his first season with Charlie Blackmon, and we had to eventually do it his second season with Keston Hiura playing first base. So I think that he's going to have to prove it that he can hit versus both-handedness, and we'll see if he can do that. Otherwise, we're going to have to platoon him once again, but then he gets a lot less at-bats just platooning versus left-handed pitching. Michael Papierski was decent when we traded for him. I think that he will just be a backup when Rafael Marchand comes back. Hopefully Marchand stays healthy this year. Zion Storm hit pretty well this year. He was definitely a boost for us. Polanco will not be re-signed, $6.3 million off the books. And I'm going to use that, like I said, for another player that will be a big boost, either in the outfield or at second base, because we're not bringing back Keston Hiura. I don't know what direction we want to go in there. Zach Veen is going to go into spring training penciled in as a platoon center fielder. The reason why I say platoon is because I still do not know if we're going to sign another guy. And if we don't, I would say that he's going to switch off with Ozuna in center field because he is a much better defensive center fielder than Ozuna is. Now, that means that I can kind of probably platoon him in left field with Winker because that's what I said I would do. But we'll see what happens there. Now, Will Benson is going to have to be better this year, and I do have him locked up for the next 4 years after this one. And I wanted to lock him up because I wanted a defensive center field or a defensive right fielder. And I think that, Will Benson does have still a ton of potential. He'll need to prove it with his bat this year, though. I imagine that Charlie Blackmon will retire. He's at age 38, going into age 39, and now he is at 59 overall. I think we've done all that we can with him and exhausted his full potential. Now, pitching-wise, a guy that was very, very disappointing for me was Luis Severino, especially in the playoffs where he had that terrible, 3 outings in a row. I mean, he could not get anybody out. I couldn't pitch him in big games, and it really hurt because, remember, when Mike Soroka went out, I was depending heavily on Severino, and I couldn't. So that's when I turned to Ramel Coffer, and he really proved to be probably the best pitcher in this rotation besides Soroka. And I really, really love what he did. He brought us back in the NLDS. He did it in the NLCS as well and really had a good outing. He did not get the win versus the Cubs, but he had a good outing. He probably should have won that game if it wasn't for some defensive things. And then there's Mike Salucci, who started his first ever game at the MLB level as a 29-year-old rookie in the playoffs. I mean, that is some ridiculous pressure he came through. And right now, if I had to choose a 5th guy in the rotation between Atlas Luntich and Mike Salucci, it would be Salucci right now because I've seen what he can do in the playoffs. He is clutch. Now, Justin Maxwell, well, I tried to pitch him in the NLCS, but it did not work. And I'm hoping that he could have a better outing come next year in the playoffs. I imagine we're going to go back, but we'll see. Because Maxwell was once one of our top pitching prospects. Now at the MLB level, he's going to need to be better. He was good in the regular season, but we'll see. Estevez is going to be a free agent. I'm going to re-sign him. I'm not going to let him walk at all. I really, really like Carlos Estevez. He was one of our best pitchers in the playoffs too. He was a guy that I really, really leaned on. His best career year was about 4 years ago, but in the playoffs, he was lights out. He had a 108 whip. I did not start Atlas Luncic as much as I wanted to because I just didn't trust him. He is definitely a pitch to contact type of pitcher, and I still believe in him. He's going to be if not a starter, a spot starter or a long relief pitcher. He's 20. He's going to be going into his age 27 year. I do like him a lot though. Now, Nick Goody pitched only a few innings in the playoffs, but he was very good, and I should have used him a little bit more. I kind of regret that. But I ended up using Derek Rodriguez in certain situations where I thought I needed more than 1 or 2 or 3 innings, and it did not work out. Derek Rodriguez did not have a good playoffs. He is under contract for 1 more year. But one guy I did turn to quite a bit was Giovanni Gallegos. He was good. I liked him. We signed him to that expensive contract along with Jordan Hicks. Both of them are under contract next year. Jordan Hicks is signed for the next 2 years after this one, and Gallegos is going into his contract year, going into his mid-30s, I would say. Zach Little was our Rule 5 draft. Every single year we've had at least one Rule 5 draft pick and that we've had at the MLB level, and they've pretty much all worked out. Nick Goody was one. Zach Little was one. Benito Ozuna was actually a Rule 5 draft pick as well, but he did not go to us. He went to the Pirates, who eventually came over to the A's, then to Denver. And then there's DeAnthony Pierre. I'm going to need him to be better. He's going to probably be in the bullpen this year. He's at 80 overall. I think he's ready for the show. We'll see what he does in the spring. Now, guys to look out for next year. Patrick Summers, who was our number 1 draft pick in season number 4, went through his first full season in the minors this year. He was decent, but remember, we had that first outing with him. He gave up a ton of runs, and then we ended up moving him down to AA, where he absolutely dominated. So we're going to put him back at AAA this year, see what he does. Jacob Miller is also an interesting guy because he is a strikeout pitcher, and he has been at AA and AAA the last 5 seasons now. He's going into age 28 year. I think he's going to be pretty good. He could be a guy we eventually move up as kind of a spot starter, like I said. Jermaine Wetzel still has a couple of more years to develop. He was our number 1 draft pick in season number 1, and he is still only 72 overall with a potential. I mean, he's getting better, but he's definitely way behind in his development. Eric Macklin was a good draft pick last year, and he didn't have an excellent year this year, but he's been developing. That's what I've been caring about mostly. And then looking at relief pitchers, our only really prospects as relief guys, I like Raleigh King. He has good ratings. He has 74 hits per 9, 69 strikeouts per 9, and 71 home runs per 9, so that's pretty good. I'm not sure if he'll make the MLB roster, but there's always opportunity for guys to get moved up and moved down. I definitely want to have the depth to be able to do that, so we'll see what happens. And how about Trez Jenkins, a guy that is 85 overall? Every time we have kind of tried to include him at the MLB level, it has not worked out. I think that now is finally his time to kind of make the MLB roster. I think he's going to need to be better there. And I think that, Trez Jenkins could work out this year being in the mid 80s. We still have him under cost control, but look at his attributes. I mean, 88 hits per 9, 81 strikeouts per 9, and then 80 control, which is walks per 9. I definitely like him a whole lot. He's just going to have to prove it this year. Lon Rivas had a down year. I can't even sugarcoat it. He had a down year. He could be in jeopardy of not being at the MLB level next season. Noah Sayer is an option as well. He has been a guy that's been at AAA his whole career. Now let's talk about some of the fielders that we have. Kenny Martinez is a left fielder, but to be honest, he is a first baseman. He is not an outfielder. Even though he has the speed, he cannot field for anything. I mean, he is definitely going to be a first baseman. An option to platoon in left field is Jesse Winker. With Jesse Winker is going to be Muhammad Willingham. His secondary position is also left field, so watch out for that. Kale Helfrich is a good outfielder. He was once a top 10 prospect in baseball this past season at one point. He is not in that list anymore. Santiago Contador is going to be a awesome first base option. He has a great power versus right. And then I highlighted Felipe Santos, a young third baseman, but I could just wait for him. He is 19 years old, going into 19 years old a year, and he could be the eventual replacement for Eugenio Suarez. Now, our top prospects in baseball right now, Jackson Lee is at number 17. Kenny Martinez is at 25. And like I said, he is more of a first baseman to me. So once probably he's ready for the show, I could be platooning him and Willingham and platooning Willingham in left field, like I just mentioned. And then Patrick Summers is there at number 36. Now, the Red Sox have the top prospect in baseball at the end of the year. Dale Hunley is a closing pitcher. His attributes are amazing, and he is very, very good at 85 overall. He looks kind of like Trez Jenkins, to be honest. His attributes are very, very similar. Tristan Stephenson is going to be number 2 with the Orioles, and then Julio Rodriguez, who is only 22 years old with the Mariners. I really like him. I'm not sure if we will make many moves in the offseason. I think it's going to be a very mild offseason. We're going to add some pieces, but who knows? When I see who hits free agency, I might change my mind. We'll have to see. So that's going to do it here for the season recap. Next episode will be the off season. I think we just need to add on to what we have along with our young guys. And I want to see some guys make some steps forward like Muhammad Willingham, like Will Benson. I think that those guys are going to be crucial to a World Series run. So hit subscribe, hit that like button. We'll be back for next episode, the off season. Stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.
Boy, all that like Keenan. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so bright, I'm gleaming. This off top, I'm tweaking. Fresh out the rat like Neiman. And I'm still tryna fight my demons. Cause we all gotta act like Tina. That's why I gotta ride with the Nina. Outside, it's a war going on.